Live from the Icebox Studio in Montgomeryville, Pennsylvania, it's the Bill and Corey Show. I'm Bill.
And I'm Corey.
Okay, this week we got a good series of questions. We're going to start out with a 3010 series. Can you supply the 3010 series regulator with a CJ170 inlet connection?
This is our 3010 series regulator right here. As you can see, if you look at it online, it's a regulator that's for corrosive materials. It's made out of stainless steel, Manel, and Hastelloy, various parts. It also has a very nice metering diaphragm valve for very precise control of the flow. Now this one's for a CJ170, which is for all gases, so it's not for corrosive gases. So this is a little bit of an overkill for a CJ170. If you're going to use a CJ170, we typically would recommend using the 3570, which is a single-stage stainless steel regulator, and this one can take non-corrosive gases just like the CJ170. However, this particular customer wanted a specific delivery pressure. This one goes from 0 to 30, however, this one can go from 0 to 10 and is much more precise inside the single-digit pressures. So in the end, the CJ170 on this one is what the customer needed.
Okay. Next question is, can you set a pressure on a delivery pressure on a regulator? Now this is kind of a complicated answer. So quick answer is yes, we can. There's different ways that we can set pressures. We can either set it to a max pressure. Some people say, oh, they buy a regulator that's supposed to go to 125 PSI and they go, oh, can you set it so max 90? So we can do it that way. Or there's some people that want to have the pressure locked, delivery pressure locked. And if you want that, what we do is we remove the knob and then we use a jam nut to lock we'd set the pressure and lock it. Now how we set the pressure is that, probably the best, if you want to have a set pressure on your regulator, it's probably best to use a dual stage regulator. Because the dual stage regulator has better pressure control over the life of the cylinder. That is with so if you want stable delivery pressure and locked, you really want to go to dual stage. If you go to single stage, unless you specify a pressure, we're going to set it for probably 200 to 300 PSI inlet. And then when we set pressures, we will set them at a static pressure. So if you need it for some certain flowing condition, we need to know that ahead of time. But our default way is if you want to set it 80 PSI and lock it, we'll do 200 PSI inlet and then lock it at 80 PSI static. And then obviously when you set it for a static condition, once you start flowing, you're going to get regulator droop, which is a normal condition, so the delivery pressure will go down when the flow increases. So another factor that can determine your set pressure is your gauge accuracy. Now the gauges that we use are called 323 gauges for accuracy. So the lower quarter and upper quarter are plus or minus 3% full scale, and the middle half is plus or minus 2%. So if you're setting, if you got a 100 PSI gauge, actually I guess we'd probably have a 200 PSI gauge. Typically for a regulator, at the lower quarter, it's going to be plus or minus 3%, so it's going to be plus or minus 6 PSI.
At 0 to 50.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just giving, just you know.
Yeah, yeah. So if you set it, yes. So if you want us to set a regulator at like 50 PSI, and it's got a 200 PSI gauge, well, we set it for 50, it might be 44, it might be 56. So you have to take that into consideration.
Yes.
Okay, so that's about all we got for this question. Next one, we're going to come up with flash arrestors. This is a long question. So I am looking for some check valves that I can use in my tests involving nitrogen and hydrogen gas. But what I have on hand are a model 6103AF, which is a brass flash arrestor, and a 6104A series. From what I understand, some flash arrestors can serve as check valves, or that the flash arrestors contain check valves within them. Do these flash arrestors serve the purpose of check valves? If not, can you suggest any check valves which can be used for hydrogen and nitrogen gas applications? It's kind of a mouthful.
Yes, it is. So these are our flash arrestors, like in the question, the 6103 and the 6104 is the stainless steel. Now, to answer the quick question, yes, flash arrestors do contain check valves. They do so much more than that, as you can see how they are constituted. It'll break up the flash and it will essentially disconnect, and so that no gas can get through, even if it gets by the check valve, and they can be reset.
Well, the brass one can be reset.
Yeah, the brass one can be reset. So can this one, as long as there's no outside damage to it.
Right. Well, there's no knob to reset it.
No, no.
On the brass one, it pops out.
It does pop out.
And you can see that it's yeah, it needs to be reset. Stainless one, you don't.
So you can theoretically use it as a check valve, but you shouldn't use it as a check valve because it's a flash arrestor, and you have it. It's meant to be a flash arrestor, not a check valve. So when people see them, they don't think of them as check valves.
Yeah.
So for safety reasons, or for just non-complication reasons, we would recommend the check valve.
Yeah, and this would be one of our brass 400 series check valves. So this looks like a check valve. It's got a big prominent arrow, and it doesn't look like it does anything else besides being a check valve. You look at that and you think flash arrestor, not check valves. So it's when you have a system and you have components in it, you want to be able to have it so that people can look at it and understand that that's what it is, and it's not. Yeah, they don't have to think too much about what it is. You have this, it's a check valve. That one, you think, we don't know exactly what it is. And there was another question we had that came in this morning in relationship to flash arrestors. I'll bring these back out. And the question was, how many flashbacks will they be good for? That's a good question.
It is a good question.
There are no number of flashback ratings for our flash arrestors. I have seen in the past on other flash arrestors that some other one, and this is just from memory from years ago, that some are rated for just 3 flashbacks.
That's the number I've seen as well.
Yeah, so you want to kind of check the specifications on that. And I looked into Compressed Gas Association, CGA has standards, and standard E12 is for safety devices, and then includes flashback arrestors. And they have a design qualification test. That's not a production test. It's just when you're designing your flash arrestor, they're kind of, design qualification test. And they say it shall pass 5 static and 5 dynamic flashbacks. So that's what they're designed for. That's the standard. I can't tell you what the vendor, people who manufacture these things test them to.
Sometimes BAM.
Yeah, BAM's like the UL. So
yeah,
this is
BAM,
so that's the question on flash arresters.
And also was asking, can this be used in hydrogen or nitrogen? Yes, it can be. This check valve.
Yeah, good point. And then we got a question on flex hoses.
You got it?
Yep. And this one, we got our plugs in the end of it, so don't get dirt in there. But the question was, what is the internal and external diameters of an armored flex hose assembly? And this is our typical flex hose, 3 foot long. It's armored on the outside, and that's to help protect you from abrasions, and makes it a little more heavy duty. Our typical flex hoses have 1/4 inch female pipe threads in and out, and the inner core is a 1/4, so the internal diameter is a 1/4 inch, and the outside diameter, well, it's about here it's about 3/4 of an inch on the armor, and the hex is a 3/4 inch across the flats, but across the points it's about 0.86 inches. So if you wanted to build something and you need to fish a flex hose through it, you'd probably want to have a 7/8 inch hole in there to feed the flex hose through it. So that's so that's a flex hose.
And they can be ordered off the website with tons of different ends if you want a different end besides a 1/4 inch FMPT at store.mathesongas.com.
That's correct. Yes, you can configure your own flexos. We got
6-foot lengths, 10-foot lengths.
3 foot, 6 foot, 10 foot, and you do CGA. Typically, people order them CGA inlet, and they might have swage lock outlet, tube stub outlet,
VCRs.
VCR outlet, or some people might even do VCR by tube stub. It's a great source to configure your own flexos, and we can ship those out in 24 hours.
Yes.
Hopefully shorter than that. Well, that's all the questions we have this week. Thanks for watching, and tune in next week at 10 a.m. on Thursday.
Set your VCRs.